Greetings, everyone. It is I, Marshall Bohemond, and let's be real with ourselves. If you've been following the news in relation to it, Games Workshop has kind of done the Deathwatch dirty this edition. Now, who are the Deathwatch? Well, the Deathwatch are they are a faction of Space Marines on Warhammer 40,000 Tabletop and in the lore, and they have, for the most part of 10th edition, been absolutely fumbled by Games Workshop in probably the worst way any faction has been fumbled in this game in a very long time. It is actually fairly ridiculous how the faction has been treated. They are one of my favorite factions. I think they are a very interesting group within the lore. I think the way they work on tabletop is also interesting. They unfortunately lack for quality Black Library books outside of one's particular series. So basically I'm making this video as a quick overview on the Deathwatch, a little bit of lore, a little bit of history on tabletop, mostly what they've been through in 10th edition and where they currently stand. So, with that in mind, let's get to the basics. The Deathwatch. What are they? They are the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos. They are a chapter of Space Marines, and they function different from other Space Marines. I noticed there was some confusion as to what they're actually about since Space Marine 2 came out. Space Marine 2 very much pushed them to the forefront, more so than they've been in a long time. But what they are the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos. They are a highly elite fighting force. They only employ veteran Space Marines. When Space Marines achieve veteran status among their chapters, the chapters have ancient oaths that bind them to the Deathwatch. And what they do is they select some of their veterans to go and fight for the Deathwatch for a period of time. These veterans will then give up for a period of time the oaths of their chapter and take the oaths of the Deathwatch. Other than their right pauldron, which maintains the colors of their chapter, they don the black armor and silver shoulder pad and left arm of the Deathwatch chapter. The Deathwatch's role is that they are as described, they are an elite force. They only employ these recruited veterans, and they specialize in fighting Xenos. They study the weapons of aliens. They focus their tactics on countering aliens. They exist as a kind of Black Ops special task force for the Ordo Xenos, and they are sent on various missions in order to either eliminate or cripple the threat of Xenos against the Imperium. They often run assassination missions against Xenos leaders, behind the lines missions to cripple Xenos operations, things like that. They're also very knowledgeable in the weakness of aliens and coming up with new ways to counter them. Now, where do they come from? Basically, the idea for the Deathwatch was born out of the War of the Beast in M32. This was there's a lot that happens in the War of the Beast. If you want to actually read of this story, you want to read the Beast Arises book series, starting with I Am Slaughter by Dan Abnett. I think it's an underrated series overall. The book Throne World is garbage, but otherwise the rest of the series I think is pretty good. And if you want to read specifically about the origins of the Deathwatch, it is the book Watchers in Death from the Beast Arises series. But the basic lore overview of their origins is that after what was believed to be the initial defeat of the Beast of Ullanor, that was the leader of the massive orc wog that was threatening basically every faction in the galaxy around that time in M32, the badly damaged fighters from Olenor, from the Imperium, got back to Terra to find out that somehow the beast wasn't dead. They didn't know how, but previously it had put a Orc attack moon, basically an Orcish Death Star, for all intents and purposes, in orbit over Terra. It had been crippled by an assault by the Last Wall, that is the unified forces of the Imperial Fist's Legion, reformed under special circumstance. It came back to life. With the attack moon came back to life, and it was teleporting in orcs to recrew it. With it directly over Terra, they had to deal with the situation fast, and Chapter Master Corland of the Imperial Fists suggests a return to the kill team tactics seen in the Horus Heresy. Once the move was approved, he organized kill teams of Space Marines from different chapters who were on hand that were present for the Battle of Olenor, and utilizing basically reverse-engineered Orcish teleporter technology, they infiltrate the attack moon and manage to destroy it. And this group of warriors, these kill teams from various chapters, were called the Deathwatch in honor of Chapter Master Corland's lost brethren from earlier in the war. Throughout the War of the Beast, they would fight clandestine missions against the orcs, targeting major orc leaders, and targeting a mission to bring the Sisters of Silence back into the Imperium. And that was basically their role throughout the war. Excuse me. While they were fighting, while the rest of the Imperium was fighting a frontline war, the Deathwatch was behind the lines, running their missions, trying to cripple the beast's forces to give the frontline warriors a better chance. After the war, the Deathwatch was taken in and became the chamber militant of the newly formed Ordo Xenos. This was the point where the Inquisition, itself a singular organization, split off into the first two major Ordos, the Ordo Malleus and the Ordo Xenos. The Ordo Xenos gained the Deathwatch as their chamber militant, where the Ordo Malleus, meanwhile, reconnected with the Grey Knights on Titan. But from then on, the Deathwatch became an official Space Marine chapter, utilizing veterans recruited from other chapters under sacred oaths to combat Xenos forces. On Tabletop, they've been a fairly unique faction. The way they function is that they utilize kill teams. Now, how kill teams work is that a kill team is a squad of Space Marines that generally is formed from different models from different units. A good example of this would be, say, the Fortis kill team. That is the very basic Primaris Space Marine kill team on Tabletop. They are made of intercessors, Infernus Marines with the Pyroblasters. They have the Desolators with their missile launchers, and they have the Hellblasters with their plasma cannons. And they mix and match these weapons. And that's the example of the Primaris. It was very similar with Firstborn too, in that the Firstborn ones would have, like, say, a kill team would consist of, more standard power armored Space Marine veterans, but then it would also have bikers, jetpacks, Terminators, all in one squad. Like they're mixing different Marine types for different combat capability. That is basically their thing. They are also in possession of a special flyer unique to their faction called the Corvus Black Star, which is kind of the best way to describe it. It's a mix of an A-10 Warthog, an A-10 Warthog, a Chinook, and a stealth fighter in terms of what it can do. It is basically a stealth troop carrying support fighter capable of air and ground combat, and it exists to stealthily get kill teams in and out of the battlefield. We will see a picture of that later when we're going over the index. But they've always been interesting faction. They've been made up of, their general units is they have the Deathwatch Veterans Squad, which is made up of veteran Space Marines of the Deathwatch, and then they had the kill teams, which mixed and matched the different units, the different models from different units, and they're elite anti-Xenos veterans. Their rules also generally revolve around, back when Warhammer Tabletop was more focused on giving, like, say, Grey Knights and Deathwatch a greater focus against what they're supposed to be fighting, that being demons and heretics. It was much more of a rules focus, that they had rules against Xenos specifically if you were fighting them. Like, they would be deadlier combatants against Xenos with various bonuses and debuffs they could give them. That was a thing that was dummied out in later editions for the sake of balance, because balancing a faction against a certain enemy type generally meant you had to nerf the faction in other ways. They eventually stopped doing this, which I think was a change for the good. But the problem with Deathwatch started really in, well, I can actually say go back as far as 8th, when Games Workshop didn't give them a Psychic Awakening rulebook. They gave them an article in White Dwarf. The Harlequins, sub-faction for the Eldar, suffered the same problem. But then in 9th edition, they had a codex like they should. Everything was fine. I think the Deathwatch debuted in 6th or 7th. I forget which exactly. But problems started to arise in the most recent edition of the game, that being 10th edition, when the Imperial Agents Codex was announced. Now, before this point, not all the Space Marine codexes are out. Only a few. The main Space Marine codex, and I want to say Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Space Wolves are not out. Blood Angels and Dark Angels have been released, and that's really it. So there are more Space Marine, they're the supplements, but there are more Space Marine supplements that are due out. Deathwatch is traditionally had a supplement rulebook to go with the Space Marine Codex, like the other specific chapters, like, the Blood Angels, Black Templars, Space Wolves, etc. The problem happened in 10th edition when Imperial Agents was announced. With the announcement came the following statement in the announcement article, which is before us right now. That being, those familiar with the current rules will recognize the Assigned Agents Army rule, which allows a certain number of units from the book to be added to other Imperium armies. This roster has been expanded to help fill out your Ordo Xenos, Ordo Malleus, and Ordo Hereticus presence, with Deathwatch kill teams joining the retinue teams. The new codex features Watchmasters, Corvus Blackstars, and Watch Captain Artemis returning to the range after an absence, so you can include a full Deathwatch contingent in any Imperium army, complete with leaders, squads, and transports. Those with full Deathwatch Space Marine armies needn't worry. They can add the Deathwatch specific units to a Space Marine army of black-clad units like Intercessors and Terminators, melding the strong formations and detachment of Codex Space Marines with the themed specialists from Codex Imperial Agents. Now, what does that mean in practice? This was basically an announcement saying the Deathwatch were dead as a faction. The Codex was not coming out. They were being folded into Imperial Agents for no explicable reason, and that you would no longer be able to run a full Deathwatch army. You would only be able to run Deathwatch allies with basically regular Space Marines dressed up to look like the Deathwatch. Now, to say this was an insulting thing is, bit of an understatement. This was a very poorly received move by Games Workshop. There were a few people who laughed at the idea of Deathwatch fans being upset that their army was effectively squatted and reduced to a few support units in a codex that was not their own. I mean, the irony that, you know, people were losing their shit over the Blood Angels models like some grave insult when they weren't even that bad anyway. They actually look pretty good. But then laughing at the Deathwatch for losing their whole faction, you know, that's not lost on me. But mostly people were, you know, fairly upset by the loss of the Deathwatch. But everyone was like, okay, how bad can it actually be, right? They said we'll be able to ally the Deathwatch units with Space Marines. Maybe they'll account for the fact that Deathwatch are supposed to be a supplement for Space Marines in the Imperial Agents Codex, rather than releasing a whole separate supplement rulebook for Deathwatch. That was what some people thought. That's what I thought. I had my doubts, but at the time, I even think I made a video about this. I think I voiced it back then, you know, how dour I felt about it. But I figured maybe there's a chance, right? Well, then, unfortunately, they released this article. And basically what they announced boils down to, let's see. Let's get to the salient point here. The good news is that you can absolutely field a whole army of Deathwatch Space Marines. You'll require a copy of Codex Space Marines. It can use any of the detachments picking Deathwatch units through the assigned agents army rule found in the new Codex. This retains a thematic flavor of Deathwatch with versatile veterans and airborne transports, while also granting access to the rest of the Space Marine armory. The Ordo, Xenos, and regular Space Marines can make use of the Deathwatch Legends datasheets and narrative games too. These include Kill Team Cassius and several highly adaptable Kill Team variants, which mix and match the wide range of Space Marine units. These datasheets have the Deathwatch keyword, exactly like those in Codex Imperial Agents, so they'll get full use of the Ordo Xenos detachment. Now this sounds good, right? This sounds like what we want. Now, for those who don't play Tabletop Warhammer, if something is in the Legends section, it is effectively not allowed for organized play, and will probably not be allowed in most serious games. Generally, it's only a thing you allow in very casual environments. The Imperial Agents Codex, for all intents and purposes, sent every Deathwatch kill team to Legends. This is effectively deleting them from the game, from any kind of serious organized play. The only remaining Deathwatch infantry units were the Watchmaster HQ unit, Watch Captain Artemis, a special character, and the Deathwatch veterans. That's the very basic infantry, and the Corvus Black Star transport. And what we found out from the Codex was, for Imperial Agents, that is, once we got it, was that the limits on allies were suffocating if you wanted to actually pull this off, because basically the full Deathwatch, the full Deathwatch army, their kill team infantry options were gone. You could not ally you could not ally the Deathwatch in the code, which counted as part of the Codex, Imperial Agents Codex, with Space Marines in any appreciable manner. Basically, you had to completely give up your special rules from Imperial Agents. The Deathwatch themselves, in terms of keywords, didn't count as Space Marines anymore. So you couldn't make use of any rules from the Space Marines Codex either. And you could only take, at most, I want to say it's 2 HQs and two other units. So what this boiled down to is you could have 2 Deathwatch HQs, so like say a Artemis and a Watchmaster, 2 Deathwatch veteran units, or 2 Corvus Black Stars, or a a Deathwatch veteran unit and a Black Star. Yeah, because the Black Stars, despite being transports, for some reason count as retinue units, when normally you can take transports freely with your allied Imperial Agents in another Imperium army. So this meant the Deathwatch were effectively dead. You were at best theming your Space Marines to look like Deathwatch, with a few neutered Deathwatch units included as allies. It was the Imperial Agents Codex is a clusterfuck to begin with. it is effectively, you can't run your own army as Imperial Agents. And the Deathwatch, it looks like they wanted to, if I had to wager a guess, somebody at Games Workshop, we know there's a civil war going on at Games Workshop for control of, the edition. The editions of the various games. It's not just Warhammer 40k. But it looks like somebody on one of those sides just decided to try to make the Deathwatch effectively the mainline infantry for Imperial Agents, like the mainline heavy hitter infantry, completely gutting the Deathwatch as a faction in the process. Like they wanted to bring up Imperial Agents with some unit options. And to do so, they brought down the Deathwatch. But ultimately, because the Deathwatch were neutered so badly, they didn't bring up Imperial Agents at all. The whole Codex is a clusterfuck. And frankly, it is one I find rather... I do not like the Imperial Agents Codex. It's good if you want to include those allied units, but really that's all. You can't make an army with it in any appreciable sense. And... basically, for this point on, our worst fears were confirmed. The Deathwatch were gone as a faction. They were just, sprinkles on the shit, on the top of the shit icing on the shit cake. That was the Imperial Agents Codex. And then something funny happened. Something really freaking funny. They released Space Marine 2. What happens at the beginning of Space Marine 2? You are playing as Titus with as part of a Deathwatch kill team, and you get to see the Deathwatch in action. You get to see Titus performing a clandestine mission at the beginning of the game, and Space Marine 2 took off. It is one of the most successful games of 2024. The fact it has got no Game of the Year nominations is a pretty clear sign of the bias inherent in the games industry, that they would not recognize this game for the absolute killer app that it is. But all that aside, it pushed Deathwatch to the forefront of the conversation on Warhammer 40,000 in the public consciousness as this game took off and became super successful. And now everyone was like, who are these Deathwatch guys? They seem cool. What are they? Are they penal legionnaires? Because that's basically what Titus is. Who are these guys? So they start looking into Deathwatch. And, well, all the recent news about Deathwatch as a faction are, of course, that, oh, hey, it was playable. And then Games Workshop basically killed the faction. So... obviously, now you've got, not only do you have angry Deathwatch players from before, now you have legions of people who knew nothing about Deathwatch before this point, now want to know Deathwatch and maybe play them. And they can't. And then, something else funny happened. They released, we won't watch it here, unfortunately. It is free to watch, though, so, if you want to check it out, it is the Enemy Without, a Deathwatch vignette. It was made by the I forget his name. Erasmus something. He was the guy who worked on the Lord Inquisitor animation a while back. It never got finished, but it was a fan animation. He went on to work on actual animation in the industry, and he most recently made Gundam Requiem for Vengeance, which was a CGI Mobile Suit Gundam series. And he also made this for Games Workshop, this animation. And this, once again, pushed Deathwatch forward into the discussion. They were pushing this faction so hard, but they'd killed it off. And... and this was debuted at Warhammer Day. So this was a big thing that everyone was watching. And everyone was like, well, what the hell, why would you push Deathwatch this hard when you just got rid of them? And it was in this article about the animation. They talk with did they list his name? His full name? Erasmus Brosdow. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He's the director. They're talking with him about it. But then at the bottom of the article came this. P.S. On the subject of the Deathwatch, lots of you have gotten in touch over the last few weeks with your thoughts on the way the Deathwatch kill teams now work on the Warhammer 40 on games of Warhammer 40,000. Okay, we hear you. A couple squads is not enough. You want to mobilize the might of a full watch fortress. While such deployments are rare in the 41st millennium, they are not unknown, and the Ordo, Xenos, and Warhammer Studio, for that matter, are not deaf to the many calls of aid. So we can confirm today, in December, we'll be releasing a digital update with more options to take your Deathwatch army to the field and lay low the alien menace. Watch this space. And basically, what it boiled down to was the December. They released it just a couple days ago. It was a redo of the Deathwatch Index, and it brings back the kill teams, reorganizes the others. It changes up the unit exclusion rules that are sometimes present in Space Marine supplements. It also added a new kill team, and basically, this is designed to be used as a supplement with Codex Space Marines. You can also, and much like those, you can also run the faction with the other detachments. So it is once again making Deathwatch a full army. Now we'll take a look at this. This is a free release, so I can show you this on. I can show you this. We'll go over what they added, how things work. Basically, how it works is one part of the Deathwatch is some of the units, more specifically. The jetpack units have different armor types mixed in. So like, see you'll see it soon. It's called a Talon Strike Kill Team. It has, like, for example, power armored jump infantry and gravis armored jump infantry, and these take up different spots, size spots of transport. So basically here, and there's also different toughness values present. So they have a rule present for kill teams where the majority toughness status is the one that you take, when it comes to factoring in, like, wounds and all that. You use the majority toughness value in the unit. So if one group of them is toughness 4 and another is toughness 5, if say 5 or more are toughness 5, then you use toughness 5. If more are toughness 4, use toughness 4, etc. If you are putting them on a transport, for the purpose of determining which models can embark on a transport model, kill team models follow the normal restrictions listed on the transports. So say a guy in power armor is 1 spot, a guy with a jetpack is 2, etc., etc. And this is to factor in the mixed units. For their main detachment rule, Deathwatch get what are called Deathwatch mission tactics. These are Furor, Malleus, and Purgatus tactics. Furor, I can never know if I'm pronouncing that right. Forgive me. Furor tactics give the entire army sustained hits 1. So on your 6s to hit, you will deal an extra hit. Malleus tactics give the entire army lethal hits. So on a 6 to hit, you will auto wound. And Purgatus tactics give the entire army precision. So every single unit in your army will be able to single out characters. And that's and you can select one of these once per game at the beginning of each command phase. As for restrictions, Deathwatch units can't include any Adeptus Astartes units drawn from other chapters, so no special characters from other chapters. No, like, say, what are they called? No Sanguinary Guard, no Wolfen, no Sword Brethren, etc. Like, no units specifically for specific chapters. That's a very common rule for all Space Marine supplements. You cannot include agents of the Imperium Deathwatch units in your Deathwatch army, with the exception of Kill Team Cassius, who for some reason are still considered agents of the Imperium, despite being legends. So basically, you can't use you can't use the Deathwatch units from Codex Imperial Agents, who have a different set of rules and different set of stratagems that tie into them, etc. Because I mean, they're the same units, but the two sets of rules have different functions, so you can't mix them. And lastly, you can't include the following units, which are assault squads with jump packs, attack bike squads, devastator squads, land speeder storms, relic terminators, scout bike squads, scout sniper squads, tactical squads, terminators, assault squads, and terminator squads. This is due to overlap, largely. Deathwatch have their own variants of these, or these are Legends units. And because the Deathwatch only employ veterans, they do not employ scouts. So that's basically what this boils down to. And then these are your stratagems, basically. Armor of Contempt, which is, Armor Contempt, which worsens armor penetration by 1. And then the special ones for the Deathwatch, which are special issue bolt ammunition. Deathwatch tend to carry special bolter rounds designed for, specific scenarios and different enemies that they fight. So, Hellfire rounds give you anti-infantry +2 and anti-monster +5. Kraken rounds give you give you increased armor penetration and increased weapon range by 6 inches. Dragonfire rounds give you assault and ignores cover, and this is on bolt weapons specifically. Meanwhile, they've also got adaptive tactics, which gives you the ability to basically switch tactics on up to 2 kill team units in your army. So if you're using, say, Malleus tactics, but you want to use Purgatus, you can switch to that, etc. And then lastly, there's site-to-site teleportation. You can teleport 2 kill team units off the field, and then redeploy them in the next movement phase. So you're basically using like a targeted teleportation to move your units around. And then they've got special their enhancements, which are Thief of Secrets, which gives you increased strength. Increased strength, damage, and armor penetration by 1. Which increases if you kill a if you kill a character. Melee phase. Yeah, basically it increases as you kill things. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at remembering the Warhammer rules. I don't do rules, so yeah, this is a new thing for me. The Osseous Key basically is a anti-vehicle weapon, essentially. You use it against vehicles to help destroy those. Tome of the Ectoclades allows you to target multiple things with Oath of Moment. And the Beacon Angelus allows you to once per battle reposition an enemy with deep strike, or reposition a squad with deep strike, like a friendly squad. Now, the units themselves are the following. There is the Watchmaster. This is like your Chapter Master equivalent. Fights with a Vigil Spear that is a variant of it. It's a variant of the it's a Space Marine scale variant of the Custodes Guardian Spear, which, if I remember the lore correctly, the Watchmasters carry it as because the Custodes gave it to them as a sign of thanks for the role the Deathwatch played in protecting the Imperium during the War of the Beast. That's how I remember it. I may be wrong, but either way, that's the weapon they carry. It is a bolter power weapon combo, and they get strategic knowledge, which allows them to declare a charge and a turn they advance and fall back. And they have the Watchmaster rule that states that once per battle round, 1 unit from your army with this ability can use it when its unit is targeted with a stratagem. If it does, reduce the command point cost of that use stratagem of the use of that stratagem by 1. So basically, cheaper, like once per battle round, you can basically get off a cheaper or free stratagem. And then they can join Fortis kill teams and Deathwatch veterans for, being combined with a unit. Then there's Watch Captain Artemis. He's basically like a special watch captain model. I want to say, for all intents and purposes, he functions similarly to a lieutenant in that he grants a tactical instinct, and then he has the unstoppable champion rule, where basically if he's destroyed, roll a d6 at the end of the phase. On a 2+, he gets back up with 1 wound remaining. So basically, like he local watch captain, too angry to die. That's his rule. And then he's got the Hellfire Extremis, which is a flamer combi bolter with anti-infantry +4, devastating wounds, ignores cover, and torrent. And he's also got a mastercrafted power weapon, and he can join Fortis kill teams and Deathwatch veterans. There is currently no lore on Artemis as to whether he's still Firstborn or Primaris. I'd be willing to bet he's probably still Firstborn, which is sort of an interesting thing, as most Space Marine characters are crossing the Rubicon nowadays. These are the Deathwatch veterans. They are the very very basic, as basic as veterans can be, infantry unit for Deathwatch. And these guys basically get to mix and match a bunch of different weapons, and they get a very, very scary bolters. Like they get them their bolters are, generally speaking, supposed to be better than normal. Let's see. Like they get one thing they get is the Infernus Heavy Bolter. This is a neat weapon, I think. It is basically a heavy flamer, heavy bolter combi weapon. It's one of my favorite weapons. It still functions like the old combi weapons used to, where you can choose to fire the heavy flamer or the heavy bolter. They also get Deathwatch Thunderhammers. They get Xenophase blades, which are basically swords made from Necron. They're like weaponized Necron technology, which is like one of those things Deathwatch can do. And they also they have the Death to the Alien special ability, where each time a model in this unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. If the attack of the target does not have the Imperium or Chaos keyword, you can reroll the hit roll in general. So they get bonuses to hit, they get a flat bonus to hit, and they can reroll hit rolls in their entirety if they're attacking aliens. They can also, they can also get, some of them can get, an invuln save from carrying a shield. They mix and match melee and ranged. They're an incredibly versatile unit. And it's 9 dudes, and you can combine make all these combinations of squads. They're very interesting because they're sort of a jack of all trades. They're a jack of all trades type squad, but generally speaking, will be good at what you kit them out to do, like whether it be melee or range. They also come with power swords baseline, so even if you're making a primarily ranged squad, you will have some good melee hitting power in there. They can be joined by anybody who can join a Stern Guard veteran squad, like any HQ unit. Next up is the Deathwatch Terminators, and these are basically the same thing, but in Terminator armor. They have the same incredibly flexible loadouts, where they can carry cyclone missile launchers, assault cannons, storm bolters, plasma cannons, heavy flamers, and then they can also wield all the melee weapons. So you mix and match melee and ranged, and again, you will always have some melee stopping power because baseline, they generally come with power fists. So yeah, it is incredibly versatile Terminator squad. They can also reroll charge rolls, and every enemy unit with an engagement range must take a battle shock test. If that enemy is not Imperium or Chaos, then the battle shock test is you have to take it at a -1. So again, strong normally, stronger against aliens. They've also got the baseline teleport homer ability. They can be joined by anyone who can join a Terminator squad. Now here is the one, like I mentioned before. This is their special transport, the Corvus Blackstar. And this thing, it is a hover vehicle, so if you don't want it to start in reserve, which is required of aircraft in 10th edition, you can start it on the board in hover mode. So, that is the option you can have. It's got anti-infantry rockets, hurricane bolter, which is like a small arms on it, storm strike missile launcher, which is a anti-vehicle option, a twin assault cannon for anti-infantry, and a twin las cannon for anti-vehicle. And it can also take a Black Star cluster launcher, Black Star cluster launcher is its inherent ability, where every time you fly over a unit, roll a d6, and on a 5-up, that unit suffers a mortal wound. You're basically dropping bombs on them. You can take Auspex Array to give it ignore cover, or the Infernum Halo launcher so it can pop smoke. And it has a transport capacity of 12. So basically, one Deathwatch infantry is one basic, power armored infantry is like 1 slot, while, Gravis and Terminators are 2, Centurions are 3. So that's the Corvus Black Star. I actually like this thing. It's one of my favorite flyers. But now we get to the kill teams. Now these are the mix and match of different Primaris squads. There used to be firstborn variants of these. These do not appear to be around anymore. But I do like the ones they have on hand. The first one, and this one is actually brand new for the index, is the Talon Strike kill team. It is made up of jump pack infantry. None of the I can never remember their name. The ones with the autocannons, they are not present in here, but it is a combination of the weapon options of assault intercessors with jump packs and the incursor squads. So, you get, pistols and chain swords, but then you've got higher toughness infantry, higher wound, higher toughness infantry as well, with either the assault bolters or plasma exterminators. And they get what are called Talon Strike doctrines, which is improve the armor penetration of weapons equipped by models in the unit by 1, or or melee weapons get the lance ability. So basically, this is a new kill team type that is dedicated to jump packs, like your jump pack infantry. Both Mark X Tacticus armored and Gravis armored. And they can be joined by anyone with a jump pack. But, basically any jump pack equipped HQ could join them. Basically anyone who could join an assault intercessor with jump pack squad. The Fortis kill team is a kill team for standard on foot Mark X Tacticus infantry. And basically they get they are shooting focused, so they get they get the full range of Mark X Tacticus weapons. The bolters, Castellan launchers, heavy bolt pistols, plasma incinerators, pyre blasters, and super frag rocket launchers. But they also get scarier bolt rifles at 3 ballistic skill, strength 5, AP -2. So, baseline, their bolters are much stronger. They also get Fortis doctrines, which basically, if they shoot targets that are below starting strength, they get 1 to hit. If it's below half strength, they add 1 to hit and 1 to wound. So, as these guys are dealing damage, they are increasing their ability to deal that damage. And then they can be basically joined by anybody who can join an intercessor squad. And, they get this, mix of, like I said, this big mixed unit of Primaris infantry types. And the Indomitor kill team are... Indomitor. I'm sorry, I thought I mispronounced that. Indomitor kill team. They focus on Gravis armor, Gravis foot infantry. And they can take the combination of weapons from heavy intercessors, aggressors, and not eliminators. The ones with the melta weapons. Basically, they get heavy bolt rifles, which again are buffed. I want to say they deal more. I want to say they deal more AP and potentially more damage. But they can also take heavy bolters, flamestorm gauntlets, frag storm grenade launchers, melter rifles, multi-meltas, heavy bolters, auto bolt storm gauntlets. It's like just all the heavy infantry, all the heavy Gravis infantry combined. And then lastly, there's the Spectrus kill team. These guys are the Phobos kill team. And they can take the combination of, the bolt sniper rifles, the Las Fusel, the Oculus and Marksman bolt carbines, all that stuff. And they can take the close combat weapon options of the what are they called? They're that one assault Primaris squad that nobody likes. The Reavers. They can take the Reaver close combat weapon options too. So this combines all the Phobos infantry. And then they have the Spectrus doctrines, where if they're 6 inches or more away from enemy units, you can remove them from the battlefield and place them in strategic reserve. So basically they can disappear off the battlefield and reappear basically anywhere. Oh, I almost forgot. Hold on. Yeah, the Indomitor kill team has Indomitor tactics, which is if you make a range attack to a closest eligible target, or makes a melee attack in a turn, which has made a charge move, then you get +2. You get a +2 to your strength. So, yeah, if they're targeting the closest enemy or charge, they get additional strength on their weapons. Spectrus gets to, if they're 6 inches away from a target, get to disappear off the battlefield and reappear. And subsequently, anybody who can join a heavy intercessor squad can join Indomitor. Anybody who can join an infiltrator squad can join Spectrus. And then there's their armory, their points values, etc. So, yeah, that's the Deathwatch Index. And the glorious return of Deathwatch to the tabletop. How did this happen? I don't know. But, what led Games Workshop to do this? I can't tell you. If I had to wager a guess, I would think, and again, this goes back to the rumored civil war within Games Workshop, that I would say whoever wanted to make Imperial Agents felt like sacrificing Deathwatch to pad out the idea, to make it more palatable. And GW Corporate, being GW Corporate, are a bunch of morons who decided, hey, that's a good idea, put it out there. And then, much like the female Custodes disaster, it blew up in their face, and they were like, okay, we need to make this right. So they basically just dusted off what they were going to... I think ultimately, at the end of the day, this index is just what they would have put in the Deathwatch Codex. That's my low stakes conspiracy theory on it. They just dusted off the rules they ditched for the Codex, tidied them up a little bit, and then put them out. That's what I think they did. Am I complaining? No. I love this index. This is a good index, and it's a free release on top of that. If you want to play a Deathwatch army, basically you use this index along with the Space Marine Codex. You can use basically all the units not listed in the exclusion rules in this index, you can use from the Space Marine Codex. That's the tanks, the infantry, the leader characters, all of it. They're an interesting army to play, and I would actually recommend people give them a try if you don't want to dump a ton of money on a physical tabletop army. There's always Tabletop Simulator, or pick up if you haven't played already, Space Marine 2. You can unlock in multiplayer. You can unlock Deathwatch armor, and you can play as a Deathwatch Space Marine. So yeah, that's generally the overview for Deathwatch in 10th edition, where they came from in terms of lore, what happened to them, and how they're doing now. I'm under the impression that this is a fairly strong index from what the guys better on rules than I have had to say. So yes, I think Deathwatch are in a good place now. I'm hoping going into the next edition, they get a proper rule book and we can avoid all this again. But that said, I'm glad Deathwatch were salvaged. They're a cool faction. They're one of my favorites. I suggest you give them a try if you get the opportunity. So yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching, everyone. I will catch you on stream sometime. This is Marshall Beaumont signing off.